Hello everyone, Storm Owen here. Today we'll be starting my Winter 2019-2020 predictions live stream, where I'll talk about my reasoning. I do not have my forecast maps, so I do have it on my phone here. I took pictures of it because I'm not able to save them, unfortunately, but I do have it on my phone here, so feel free to ask questions for your area for winter 2019-2020. Hello, Agent 4. Welcome to the live stream. We have our first question here. Snow for Texas. That is possible. It depends with the setup where the trough placement is going to be. There is potential for it, but later this month in November, you do have some really cold air coming in, but the snow chances for that is actually going to be off to your north. It's actually a chance of snow for Oklahoma and maybe even northern Texas early next week. So I do know where you live. So yeah, if we're seeing any new viewers here, new subscribers here, if we do have lag on this live stream, I do apologize. If some subscribers have been on here for a long time, know that, and I do not know how to fix it. There's some live streams that lag and some other live streams don't. I'm trying to see I could get chat on my phone here before we start here. Yes, I want to pop up yet. Oh, no. Why does it not want to pop up? Maybe if I look it up on my channel, see. There we go. We got it. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and get started with this live stream. So now I got chat here. Hopefully we can have some people in here tonight. So let's go ahead and get started here with the Jamstack model here. As you can see here, get my pen out. We do have a positive PDO going on here. We got a nice ridge going on there. Very warm waters around Greenland, which gives, I think that's a negative NAO or positive right there. I know this is a positive PDO. This could be negative. So what you got going on here, you got a ridge going on up here. Looks like there's going to be a little bit of a weak trough in here. Maybe a weak little ridge in here. You also got a ridge going on in here. What this is going to happen is, this is kind of going to make the trough kind of like that for perspective here. You also will see some server jets kind of going on in here. This is your polar jet here. Now, it's probably not going to be this far west here. Probably not that far west. Could be kind of a little bit like this here. But this area here is something to watch here. Parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast here looking to be a pretty good setup here. And on the next frame here, we're going to see what the AO is going to be like, which is up in Canada. But let's first take a look at your precipitation here. Now, this is the best model out there. Probably, I do believe the Jamstack is the most accurate long-range model out there. This is a Japanese model here. So, if you look towards the west, it's pretty dry. It's also a little bit dry here. You know what? I need to make my pen smaller. Alright, let's try this again. So it's really dry out here. It's actually a dry slot here. It's actually pretty wet in the southeast here. I think the idea here from this model is, like I said, seems like there's going to be a tropical jet going on up here. Multiple low pressure systems here, because the high pressure is going to be kind of like down in here. Or perspective here. like in here where it's dry. So your polar vortex could be somewhere in there. And here's your jet stream, basically, kind of like that. Even though you're not going to have much precipitation over here, for these areas here, you'll still see snow. But the different story over here is you got a ridge going on out in the west here. And what's that going to do is going to keep it dry and warm, and you're not going to see that much snow out in the west here. You can see there's actually some neutral to maybe slightly above average precipitation there. There could be a couple of times we could see like a zonal flow, which is basically just like this. Your low pressure systems just go by the northern United States, while the south here is warm, while up here is just chilly. And you get tons of snow from zonal flow sometimes there. So that's the, excuse me, the precipitation. Now let's look at the surface air temperature. So this is at the surface here. If we can get it, there we go. So it looks like we have a positive AO right here. Very warm up at Canada there. You can see all your cold air is in the central and eastern United States here. So basically what this is indicating here is you get a blocking ridge up in the near the North Pole. Our pronunciation is terrible. You can see there's a little bit of warmth out in the west, and even including the north is getting a little bit warm there. You can see here, it seems like you're going to have multiple trough blasts in this area here. And this area here is probably something to watch here at this point from the Jamstack model here, or at least for these areas here, just needs to keep an eye on the weather here. Probably a little bit questionable for the northern plains here. There's a good agreement what's going to be happening in the west now is that's going to be warm and dry there. It's been a pretty good consistency with the model data, even with some history there. Back in 1939, 1940 winter. Well, let's go back to 1939, the fall. So far, comparing to 1939 and now, here in 2019 in the fall, it's been very similar. And it was very warm out in the east. On the first part of fall, even late summer, it was extremely warm. Now we're getting pretty cold. And that's what's been showing, similar to 1939, is the warm kind of lasts into October, and then it's just cold blast in November. That has been very similar so far to 1939. And what here in Kentucky, I got all this information from a chief meteorologist in Central Kentucky. I'm a big fan of him. He said on the winter in 1939 and 1940, I can't show it to you guys, but I can tell you this. He said in the state of Kentucky was one of the coldest and one of the snowiest winters on record. So that is something else here. So that's just the state of Kentucky here. So maybe even the surrounding states like Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, maybe even along the East Coast here, maybe even parts of Central Plains. But someone actually gave me some info about North Carolina about that winter as well. And it was actually really snowy across parts of the northern and western parts of North Carolina. Which is kind of giving me an indication here is this is just a guess here that the jet stream was probably something like that there. You get really big snows for these areas here. So far it's been matching up. It's not going to be exactly the 1939-1940 winter, but it's going to be very similar because so far it's been very similar to the fall of 1939, where it's been very warm at first, now it's getting cold. It's been very similar. So here's your the Jamstack suggestion here is kind of similar to my forecast here. Not really exactly with the trough placement, but I do get the idea of it. So, yeah. So let's add another tab here. Let's look into some of the models on tropical tibbets here. We'll take a look into the CFS and the Canceps model. I did get some news that the Canceps model did get an upgrade, so should be fun to look at. The CFS so I was going to let you guys know that the internet around my house, even around the county, has just been terrible in the past couple of weeks. So I don't know what's going on there. Oh yeah, they said here on Tropical Tibbets today that NOAA data center is having problems and some NCEP models may be delayed. So, but we're not too worried about that though. So let's look into the CFS model here. We're going to go month by month here. Now these are the temperatures in the upper heights in the atmosphere. So this is 500 millibars. So this is not the surface here. So these are not surface temperatures here. What you actually need to be focused on is actually these black lines here. And what the trend looks like right here with these black lines here, there's a weak trough into parts of the northern, around the Great Lakes region, probably kind of extending to maybe some of these areas here as well. You also do have a ridge in the west here. So this is December here, and it looks to be just a weak trough in the east here. Maybe a little bit of zonal flow going on here. Maybe. There is a pattern change maybe coming up later November, but we'll see about that. It's where the central plains start to get a little bit warmer. The east looks to be kind of a little bit chilly, but I think the west starts to cool down a little bit, I do believe. So at least there's some good news for the west here so far for later in November. So let's move on to January here. Now, again, do not pay attention to the temperatures on the, don't pay attention to the temperatures. The black lines here, it's actually starting to get a little bit intense here. You got a better trough in the east here, and the ridge is actually a little bit stronger in the west here. So there's a little bit of a trend going on here. So that's January there. In February here, the ridge actually out west actually gets pretty strong there for February, but it seems like the trough here has kind of been pushed a little bit to the northeast here. Your trough is basically right in here. You got a big time ridge for these areas here. And it could be a pretty active pattern for these areas right here in February here. Potentially some snow happening for some of these areas in here. So what the CFS is predicting is pretty much a trough out in the east. Not really much of a strong trough at all, but there is a trough there. But it seems like the ridge gets really strong as we get towards the end of the winter. Pretty interesting. And here's March here. And the ridge out west starts to weaken. And it starts to become a little bit of a zonal flow here. So it's basically a look into the CFS in the upper in the atmosphere. Let's look into the precipitation here. So here's March here. Kind of all over the place. So we're not going to really pay attention to March that much at this point. Here's February here. I actually agree there's quite a bit from the CFS here. It's actually pretty good actually for a first time in a long time here. Dry out in California, I do agree. You can see it's even wetter for these areas here. Neutral up here, a little bit drier down here. I don't think it's going to be that dry down there. It could be dry for those areas there. Again, with my thinking what the jet stream is looking like, it's something like this here. Your trough kind of comes in a little bit of sharp curve there. So definitely some snow chances for these areas here so far here. Maybe for these areas here as well. There could be a couple times where you get, if the trough is going to be very strong here, you can get lows that can attract something like this here, which we had that before. You get tons of snow for some of these areas here. That was terrible. There we go. Quite a bit of snow for those areas there. That is possible for this winter here. Nope, we're not going to save the changes. And here's January here. Again, still wet for these areas here around Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama. Getting wet there. But that cold air, that trough is kind of in place. Your trough at this point, I believe, is up there. So the snow chances are actually a little bit higher for these areas here. A little bit drier here. Not that bad down in California there. Still a little bit dry. Erase all that. So it looks like it's a little bit weaker here. And then it becomes a little bit of a stronger trough here. And it looks like there's two different patterns here. It looks like trough could go that far. The trough could go that far, which this one here looks to be the most consistent. Same thing for this one. Alright, for a couple times here. A little bit dry down in here, southern Florida. I agree with that solution. I do agree with this solution here. So far the CFS, I actually agree with this precipitation here. Typically it's all over the place from models for precipitation here. It seems like it may have a good handle for this winter here. So here's December. We got a little bit of a shift going on here in December here. You can see it's wet out in the west here, which I'm okay with that. A little bit wet up here, a little bit here. But overall, it's dry in here. A little bit dry there. It's a little bit dry up at the Great Lakes. A little bit dry in the parts of Northeast here. Neutral for the Northern Plains here. So this is probably my idea here. Probably at this point, this is more like a zonal flow right here, basically. So that's kind of your jet stream here. Maybe having a weak ridge in these areas here. And it looks like it could be a little bit wet here. Definitely wet over here. They actually really need rain right now. So there's some good signs for California there. So it might be a flip-flop pattern over here. Because you've seen the higher your height anomalies there, 500 millibars. There's actually a little bit of a ridge here, a little bit of trough here. So out west could be more of a flip-flop pattern. Ridge, trough, basically like that. While the east here, it's a little bit consistent with a trough here. But this here might be a little bit of a flip-flop pattern for parts of the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, parts of the Mid-Atlantic there as well. So that's something a little bit interesting for December there. Hey, let's hope if that happens there for December, because California really needs to rain right now. Let's go ahead and back this up. Let's move into the CAN-SIPS model here. The upper height anomalies. Let's see here. Alrighty. So this is what's going on here. So you got a little bit of a ridge in the west. A little bit of a zonal flow here. Not much of a trough here. Basically your trough is more of right up here. Not that far south, but it does have the same idea for December here. Probably a weak ridge over here. Could be a little bit a flip-flop pattern over here as well. And probably in there as well for a flip-flop pattern here. So it might be a really active, pretty active weather season for December. Pretty active weather patterns for December. What it looks to be from the CAN-SIPS model as well. So something a little bit interesting there. January here. Oh boy. Look at this here. Very nice ridge going on at the west. It's actually really far out west though. So probably parts of the Rockets may be able to get lucky in January here. But you can see here, we got a really strong, pretty strong trough coming in here for the East here. So typically at this point, your trough, your jet stream pattern is kind of like this here a little bit. Well, not that intense, but probably something like this here. So snowfall potential for these areas here, probably even for Maine as well. Definitely some lake effect snow to watch here. Same thing from the JAMSTAC model did not really show much of lake effect snow activity, but the CFS did. And same thing so far from the CANSIPS model here. Really good agreement on this. February here, so things start to get a little bit different here. Starts to become a little bit zonal here. You got a weak, pretty weak ridge and a weak trough here. This could be pretty good for some of these areas up in here for the winter. That is possible in February here. So it could be active over here. Not so active for these areas here by the looks of it. But we'll see about February here. So there's a little bit of uncertainty for February. We'll move on into March here. March looks just to be a zonal flow here. Basically a large ridge in the south here, basically. And maybe a little bit a ridge just off the coast of California here. And it's just wet, probably snow up there. So basically there's a good agreement that it'll probably become zonal flow by March here if things start to get warm. There's probably going to be severe weather chances, but we're not going to talk about that. That'll be in my spring 2020 forecast, which that'll be, in my prediction, probably in January or February. So far, spring could be really active for severe weather across parts of the central and eastern United States. Cannot wait for that. Honestly, probably for everyone else, it's like you don't want it to happen for me since I like severe weather so much, and I haven't had any severe weather this year. That's crazy. Usually I'll get severe weather once or twice a year. I never even got any, so yeah, let's move on to your precipitation here. So we'll start with March. I'm at December. So a little bit wet around the Great Lakes here. Not too much of an idea here for December here. A little bit dry. Pretty wet in the northwest here. I did put this area here in a flip-flop pattern. So far, my forecast is actually going pretty well from the models here. Let's see here. Anything else? Hold on. I'm going to have to compare this to the upper high anomalies and see what's going on here. Let's see here. Go over here. So this is December. CANSIPS model. We'll move it on into CANSIPS model is doing a pretty good job so far. So here's December here. Weak trough in the east. Okay, I get the idea here. So it could be a little bit dry in California in here. So basically, pretty active jet stream near the northwest and kind of dies down. Maybe your jet stream will be something like that. Maybe some a little weak ridge here for December. So December looks to be a pretty active pattern here potentially. At least there's a lot of uncertainties here so far for the United States here. So we're not 100% sure for December. So December might be a difficult forecast here. I'll release a December 2019 forecast later this month here, but we may have a better agreement later on, but we'll see. So far, looks to be a difficult forecast for December here. Let's see here. Let's move on into February. I meant January, sorry. Okay, so January here. I do agree with the West here so far. I do agree. A little bit dry here. A little wet here. Maybe a little bit there. A little bit dry there. Just looks like pretty neutral for winter. Just an average precipitation winter, but you don't necessarily need above normal precipitation for snow. You can have dry precipitation. What did I say there? You don't need any precipitation for snow. There, if you're going to get below average precipitation, if you're going to stay in the trough, you don't really have to worry about much about snow because the cold air will be in place. So, and it doesn't take much moisture to create snow. So far at this point here, I think your trough is going to be something like this here. Whoops. Something like that here. Probably some snowfall potential up in here. Oh, also in here as well here, maybe. Let's see here. Let's move on to December. February. Why am I getting those backwards? Oh my gosh. So, above average precipitation for the Northwest. A little bit in the Northern Plains. A little bit there. Really dry in the South here. Really dry. So, the CANSEPS model. Here, let's move on to February. Seems like the ridge starts to move east here. By each month, it expands eastward here. Tries to get in these areas here in particular, but you got that trough fighting here, so probably this area here needs to keep an eye on it so far here. And same thing for these areas in here, maybe. So at this point, so far from the Kansas model, probably potential for a little bit above average snowfall for these areas. And probably from these areas as well. Lake effects though, probably so. But at this point for February, the temperatures will be too cool for lake effects no in February. But it could still continue on though. Let's move on to March. So March just looks to be zonal flow. So basically in March, everything becomes pretty zonal. It does look like a severe weather setup, potentially. Again, like I said, a little bit too far out. Probably a severe weather potential for these areas, maybe even further up north a little bit. So yeah, so basically the 2 months you gotta watch for winter definitely is January and February. March looks to be just a zonal flow here. Dry south, a little bit wet north. December there looks to be more a pretty active pattern here. Ridge west, trough east, and can flip-flop around like that. So it looks like a pretty active pattern for December. February, January and February, it looks to be pretty consistent here. So, yeah. Let's move on to the Enzo region here. Almost forgot about that. You always gotta take a look into the Enzo region. So we're done looking at models. Now we gotta look into the Enzo region. The Enzo region changes the weather across the world. So very important. So this was updated back on Monday. It updates every Monday. So let's see here. So not active at this point. Neutral conditions are going on right. Neutral conditions are present. Enzo neutral is favored during the Northern Hemisphere fall 2019 with a greater than 85% chance. Continuing through spring of 2020. 55 to 60% chance. Now I'll show you guys what a neutral phase does here. So here's the current waters here. Seems like it's warming up a little bit. You can tell it's been going up and down, but overall it's been neutral. So Nino 4 started to cool down a little bit. Nino 3.4 has been going up and down. Same thing for Nino 3. And 1 plus 2 here has been going up and down a little bit, but it's been consistent to be below average. And here's your picture over here. Nino 4 looks to be pretty warm, about close to El Nino Madoki stage. So, now this is back at October 6th, at least the average. See, right over in here, it's been getting really cool. While over here, it's been warm. But right now, it's been going on as a cooling trend. Let's see here. Let's see here. They got all kinds of stuff on here. Okay, so this is below the surface here. So this is October 30th. You got really warm waters beneath the surface here. Cool over here. We're going to see about this here. It seems like it's that warmth underwater is really taking over. I don't know if we'll have an El Nino this winter here. Mine's been kind of trending that way. Oh yeah, keep in mind with the winds here. If you get some strong winds, it'll keep the waters cool. We do see that occurring right now. We still got winds cooling those warm waters down below the surface here. We'll see how long that continues there. So it might be trending a little bit warmer. So the south is probably getting a little bit, no. The north should be trending a little bit warmer. So we might, let's see here. You can see it's been neutral. Here's winter right here. So it's a little over 60% chance for neutral conditions here. See the El Nino's been going up a little bit, but it's still really low. There. I did not know you could keep it that way. So here's the models overall for the NZ region. If you go above this one here, that's El Nino. If you go below this is La Nina. At this point here, models are keeping it a little bit warm, but it's still neutral conditions here. So we have a good agreement for neutral conditions to be present. So here's the CFS version 2 model. So its prediction here is, so this is winter right here. Look at to be staying neutral here. There could be a little bit of uptick with warmth, as you saw there below the surface. So really warm waters that eventually will come up to the surface there. So we may see a little bit of uptick of a little El Nino try to come up here in December. That's why it's probably going to be an active pattern here. So let me try to find winter. So here's winter right here. Overall neutral conditions here are present. It's a really good agreement for neutral conditions. Excuse me. So here's NOAA for the next 3 months here. So they always follow with the CFS model. If you do look into the 2-meter temperature anomalies for tropical tidbits, you know it has a warm bias. And NOAA always uses the CFS. Now what I do is downgrade it a few degrees and you'll get kind of your forecast here. So like for this example here, it looks like they want to keep a ridge in these areas here, probably cooler than average for these areas here, probably a little bit neutral here, and a little bit neutral here on the east coast here. So they're predicting like a ridge for the desert southwest here into the plains there. So what that creates is a trough like that there, having some snow potential for these areas here. If you look onto your precipitation here, a little bit drier here, a little bit drier here, wet here. I think the wetter normal placement should be more over here than it is here. So it could be a little bit wet for these areas here, probably over here as well. Overall, I disagree with everything they got here. They're not really that accurate. If y'all have seen the past times that NOAA has done their winter forecasts. So here's the summary here. So we're going to have neutral conditions. So pretty much going to be present throughout the winter for the most part here. And I'm going to give you guys the example of a neutral winter. Neutral winter. Let's see here. I remember what it looks like, but I actually want to show you guys the picture of it. Okay, that is not what I want. Neutral Enzo winter. Here we go. A good example for it. So this is what it is here. So it's wet here. It's warm across the south here. That's what it's starting to trend a little bit here. The south is looking to get a little bit warmer. You can see your cold air stays in place around the Great Lakes region here. Typically, if you wondering where most of your snow is going to be at, it'll be right in this area here. And so far, it's been trending pretty well here. Probably most of the snow actually could be in this area here where the wet and the cold are pretty close to each other, which is parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, well, mostly the Appalachian Mountains here. In my idea here, I think we're going to have a few nor'easters here. We can probably have a couple of storms, or what people call Appalachian runners there. I think we can have a few more Appalachian runners than nor'easters in this winter here. At least because there's a little bit of ridge in the water here. So it may turn into a nor'easter a little bit later, like for parts of the far northeast there. That's at least my prediction here at this point here. So here's some other examples here. So these here were neutral. Yeah, these were neutral winters right here. You can see it was wet here. So this is back in the 1900s here. The 1900 winters here. 1952, 53, 1961, 62, 1966 to 67, and 1978 to 79 here. Pretty wet across the east here. Wet up here. You know what? California gets lucky here. Wet, a little bit of a mess there. Wet and dry. Pretty dry in these areas here. I think that we'll see more of kind of neutral precipitation here, but they may get a little bit dry for parts of Texas and Oklahoma there for the winter. We'll see if we can find this. Probably something like that. Let's see. I don't think I'm going to be able to find us those years, though. But this is the long-term average here. Yeah, that's just averaging the winters there. So, am I forgetting anything else here? So I've shown you all the models. I've shown you all, and so I talked about a little bit of history there. So what else am I forgetting? I could be forgetting something. I'm trying to think here. Uh, I did always look into other people's forecasts. I've seen Direct Weather's final forecast. Both of us do have some similarities with our forecasts here, especially for the worst of the winter there. But mine goes a little bit further back into Kentucky there. But I do know what he's getting at. So, if y'all guys got any questions for the winter, you can put in the comment section, not comments, the chat. Don't be shy. Feel free. So, yeah, I'm trying to think here if I'm forgetting anything else before I end this here. Shoot. We'll go back here. We've been live streaming. This shows y'all how long it takes to go over this info here. I've been live streaming for 41 minutes. Dang. Shoot. I mean, if I do look up the winter in 1939, 1940 winter, all it's going to show is war. Video output's low. So every time if I go onto the screen, video output's low. So, I think overall, the East should have a really good winter, at least from Kentucky all the way up into the Northeast. There, even parts of the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic region, should have a really good winter. Here in Kentucky, we haven't had much snow for the past couple of winters, so hopefully we can get some good luck from this one here. So the desert Southwest, for the most part, looks to be staying warm and dry. The Northwest will have more of a flip-flop pattern. Around the Great Lakes region should have above average lake effect snow season. Also some very cold conditions there, but they might need to be pushed south after looking into some model data. The Southeast looks to be probably a little bit wet. It could and have pretty much average temperatures there for the winter. Could be slightly below average. It could be a little bit flip-flop pattern for the temperature-wise. Excuse me. Central Plains kind of pretty much neutral. More of average this winter here. Could be. You can probably see a couple of cold shots there, but as you go towards the end of winter, may start to warm up a little bit. So yeah, I think everybody in the United States except for the desert Southwest should see a pretty good winter this year here. I do have pretty good confidence in this forecast here since there's been a really good consistency with model data and there's history along with it, and also seeing meteorologists do their final winter forecast, and they are following along. We do have a very similar idea of what could happen this winter here. Probably for the snowiest will probably be from around Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Should probably see most of the snow this winter here than probably anybody else. So, yeah, guys, that's our go for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed this live stream. If you all did like this live stream, hit that like button. If you do like my channel, hit the subscribe button. Hit that bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you all guys got any questions about this, if you are watching this as a video, you can put in the comment section down below or answer you guys questions. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.